you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, our latest 6 that makes official. Welcome to 60 years, 2,700 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. 2,800 episodes, excuse me. I got to just keep up with my own self here. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about insights on how to make your life better, because that's what we do on this darn show. We don't do shows to make your life worse. We do them to make it better. I mean, if you want to make your life worse, well, then you can do that on your own time. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. His book is entitled Tapping into the Power Within, Your Journey to Empowered Success, out July 26, 2024 by Conrad Toner. We're going to get in with him and find out his deets, as the kids say. I don't know if that's what the kids say, but it's one of those things. Conrad has a burning desire to help people find balance in their lives. He's dedicated to helping his clients break through the limiting beliefs that keep them from living a life filled with love, peace, and happiness. He's a firm believer that success is a conscious choice, and if you persist long enough doing what you love doing, you will succeed and you will win. He's been working as a life coach, law of attraction trainer, and facilitator for the past number of years. His life experience, education, and training set him apart as a life coach and author, and he's been a successful farmer for over 30 years. He has served as a global justice participant, working and learning alongside community leaders in Ethiopia, Bhutan, Mexico, Nicaragua, and several Southern American countries. Welcome to the show. How are you, Conrad?
I'm just great, Chris, and thanks an awful lot for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. Give us your .coms, wherever on the internet you want people to find you.
You can find me at www.ConradTonerAuthor.com.
And so give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside this book?
What's inside there is that I spent most of my life on a farm. Mm-hmm. I farmed for 30 years. I worked with a lot of people on the farm. And so when I turned 56, I decided that I didn't want to farm anymore. So I was kind of lost for a few months. And then I went back to university and got myself a degree in leadership philosophy. Oh. And then I went from there to becoming a life coach for about 8 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so I've got a lot of experience. I've traveled a lot. I've worked in different countries, and I've had a pretty happy life. And I like for other people to have the same kind of a life where they can be happy and enjoy their work and have fun and find what their purpose is in life. And once you find that, I find that it's the easiest way to have a happy and rewarding life is to find out what your purpose is. So I've been working with a lot of people, helping them to find their purpose, their true purpose.
A lot of people do that in life. They kind of wander around for a long time, and sometimes they don't find their purpose till later in life when they kind of go, this is kind of my gig. Maybe it's because sometimes they're searching for their purpose. That's kind of why they're wandering around a little bit. What would you say?
Well, I think that, most people are looking for something on the outside rather than, our best moves, our best things that we can do with our life is to look at the inside and find out where we're happy, where we're the most happy. And I'm a bit of a religious guy, and I think that we can't be afraid sometimes to ask the source or ask God how he can help us the best or how she can help us the best and work mm-hmm. together. I had all that experience, so I had a lot of things that I could look at. But when people really go inside and decide what they want and look at their purpose, and it takes time. You're not going to find your purpose overnight. Sometimes you can get tied up in a job or a relationship or anything, and you waste a lot of time in there. And you really have to get out and look for things to happen on the inside rather than on the outside. I'm sure, Chris, you heard the expression that you don't win $1 million and become happy. You become happy and then win $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And people that win $1 million that are already happy, they usually spend it pretty well and do good things with it. But if you're unhappy, it won't change your life all that much. You'll still have an unhappy life, probably.
Yeah. What is that old saying Emerson said? Some people travel to get away from themselves. I'm paraphrasing here. But wherever you go, there you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Miserable. Going to France isn't going to make you happy. I mean, long term, you might be, for the first few days or week, stimulated and like happy, but you'd eventually just find that you're your same miserable self. If that's
we always take ourselves with us, right? And wherever we go, we're the same person. So we either getting along with people or find good people to work for, or become in a good relationship or whatever. It's important that we keep ourselves calm and cool. And some of the ways to do that is through meditation. The last number of years, my wife and I, Linda, we've been doing a lot of meditation. And I think that's one of the ways that really helps us to calm down and think about our lives a lot. And
Yeah, meditation can be something that calms the mind, makes people be present. It's really healthy for a lot of people. So what was the aha moment that you had in writing this book? What was the moment where you went, I need to write a book about this? Was there any sort of aha moment?
Well, there's been a lot of aha moments over my life. But, sometimes we end up in difficulties that, I remember when I was 21 or 22, I was in my second year of university. And I wasn't getting along very well with the prof. That was back in the late 60s. And, there was a lot of things going on then. We had the Vietnam War and all this stuff that was going on. And I was I was at a college at that time. And when I come out of high school, I graduated from high school. That had taken me a long time to get there. But when I finally did graduate from high school, I had a lot of my friends that were going to Vietnam, and they were from the States, and most of them didn't have much choice. They knew when they went back home that they were going to go to Vietnam. So I was asking this prof a lot of questions about what's going on in Vietnam. Like, I was a Canadian and stuff like that. And, I wasn't the nicest guy about asking questions either. So anyway, we got in kind of a scramble there, and he told me at my second year that he said, Conrad, I'll make sure that you never graduate from this university.
What? Wow.
And I said, what? And he said, yeah, you're never going to be able to graduate from this university. So I ended up having to leave that university, and really? I did. And, you think that's at that point, I was lost. Like, I didn't know what to do with myself. And,
now, what stage was this? Was this after you left farming, or was this earlier?
No, this was the first time I went to university. So I was only 21, I think, at the time. And, I was in my second year, and I was doing okay. But I could tell that I didn't feel good being there either. And certainly the prof didn't feel like having me there. So anyway, I was told to leave.
Wow.
And, I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen in my life at the time. But, that turned out the best thing that ever happened to me. And, we often get in situations where we think that, life is a real disaster. I can't get out of the situation that I'm in. But we come out of those situations very well if we calm down and allow things to happen, So on the short term, what happened was I had a brother who was older than I was, and he was a Catholic priest, and he was going to South America for a trip to visit some of his friends and people down there. Anyway, the long and short of it was that I went with him, and we spent, a lot of time there, a month and a half. I think we were gone a month and a half, maybe 2 months. Visited Colombia and Peru and all these places. We spent pretty near a week going up the Amazon. Can you imagine a week ago? A week, 1968 or 69. It was such a learning experience for me. So anyway, when I came back from there, I was kind of wishing that all my friends from the university had gone there. I think they would have learned more from that than going to university.
Yeah. A lot of people back in the day used to do that with Peace Corps and other things.
Yeah.
And it really helped Americans, and I think other people like yourself, but it really helped Americans realize there's a world out there. We, as Americans, we kind of have this problem where we think the world revolves around us. And, it's that classic trope of the asshole American, has that one movie. And it's kind of how we roll. We have a little bit of narcissistic attitude. It's worse now in 2026, but back in your day, in my day, I was born in 68. The people go do the Peace Corps thing, or they would travel. They'd hitchhike across the country when it was still kind of safe to do that. Remember, everyone used to do that in the 60s. And so people would see the world. They would get outside their bubble. And, I think people do a little bit of that now with travel, but they don't really get outside of America. They don't really see the world. And I think when you see how other people live, how other governments are run, it really gives you a perspective on, how good we have it here in North America, at least above the equator of Mexico. You're Canadian, I'm American, we're pretty well off, but it teaches you to be grateful for the things you have, I think.
Absolutely. But I think, along with that we became lazy in the sense that, most of us graduated from high school, went to university, got a degree out of university, went on to teach or do whatever it was, and then got good pensions and lived forever after, sort of not having to pay attention to a lot of other things that were going on around the world. And I think that we let our politicians and our media get away with a lot of things that have happened in the past that we haven't really been able to find out why it's happened. For instance, the 9/11 thing, when Kennedy got shot, all that stuff. And, even the Vietnam War, I never really understood at the time why it was going on and why we would be spending all that time in a country like that. And, so, and that's still going on today in a lot of ways. Like, we got the situation in Cuba right now that's going on. And we've had, wars all around the country, all around the world. And things haven't changed that much in the last 50, 60 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's one of the things.
Yeah. Sorry. I get carried away here, Chris, but.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, you got to value what you have. And, the one thing I always say on the show is the one thing man can learn from his history is that man never does. And thereby we just go round and round and round and round. And so let me ask you this. You write this book, you put it down to paper. And while you're doing that, was there a turning point in your life that made you realize about purpose? Where did you strike upon this purpose thing? What was the story behind that?
Well,
when did you know you had a purpose, maybe?
I think that when I was, I knew it when I came back from traveling with my brother, and that was in the early 70s or late 60s. And I knew exactly because I had taken some time. I had got, sort of asked to leave university, and I went there not knowing what I was going to do with the rest of my life. But when I went down there, I found some time, and I talked to a lot of people, and I saw the situations that people were living in Colombia and Peru and places like that. And when I come back, I knew for sure. I said, I want a farm. And I was brought up on a farm, and I came back here with that being my idea. And I loved farming while I was farming. But then we get to the point where, I had been there for 30 years and I wanted something different. Yeah. And so I just quit farming, sold the farm to my brother and my son, and they took it over. And then I was lost again for a while. And then, Chris, you're not going to believe this, but it's okay. I was out running one day, and I've always been a runner. And while I was out there, this voice said to me, I don't know where it came from. I had been running for about 40 minutes, and then I had about 10 minutes left of my run. And somebody said, go back to university. And I turned around and I looked, there was nobody there. and go back to university. And I thought, my God. So anyway, long and short of it was, I came home and told my wife, I said, Linda, I said, I've been told to go back to university. And I said, I don't know where it came from. And well, she said, geez, Dad, she said, we've had 4 kids. We said, we just got them through university. So anyway, the long and short of it was that what happened was, I decided I would go back to university. So I tried to get into the same university that I had got told to leave. And they were frigging around. They wouldn't let me back in anyway. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it would have had to go through the board and all that stuff. I didn't want to get into that. Anyway.
It's not very friendly for university, is it?
No, and after 30 years.
One unfriendly. Now, is this the same university that the guy put you off and said you never graduated?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So then I went to a meeting one night, and this guy had heard that I wanted to go back to university. He said, Conrad, there's the University of New Brunswick is they're starting a leadership philosophy program. Mm-hmm. And they said they'd like to have a couple of people in the program that have experience.
Oh, wow.
So next day, I called the assistant dean and spoke to her, and she said, Conrad, get down here. We'd love to have some people with your background. And so I went back to university at 56, and it was a great, that was my purpose at the time. It was so wonderful to go back and have all these young people there that were showing me how to run a computer and where to go to class and all that. God, it was wonderful. So it was a great experience.
Mm-hmm. A great experience. Awesome sauce. So let's see here. The other question I had for you is, what's the biggest misconception people have about personal transformation?
People find it really hard to change, like they get, for instance, they're in a job or they're teaching and they hate it or they don't like it. And they would like to get out of it, but they think that it's so hard to change, and it's not really. I mean, you have to decide what else you want to do, and I'm not suggesting that anybody should quit their job tomorrow and just move out and try to pick something else out, because that doesn't always work that way. But transformation starts with small shifts, like you start doing things that you think you might want to do and get into it in a short way. It's just like, for instance, if you're going to the gym or something like that, and you can't go in there and change your body overnight, but you can go in there and start in a small way. Mm-hmm. For instance, I used to go to the gym a lot, and when I was doing that, I would see people there that came in, that had been going to the gym for an hour a day for I don't know, a few months. Mm-hmm. And then they wouldn't see a whole lot of change. A lot of them would quit, but the ones that stuck to it and did it for a year or so, you'd go back after a year and you'd see these people were in good shape and feeling good about themselves. And there's other things like that you can do too. For instance, the book, The Slight Edge, I don't know if you've ever read it, but he talks about how if you read 10 pages a day, that's 3,600 pages a day, or 10 days after a year will give you, that's like reading 18 or 20 books. And you can learn an awful lot from that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so you can make changes in your life and make them slow, but they accumulate. If you're consistent, you're going to accumulate a good education, and you're going to accumulate a lot of good things in your life.
If you motivate and go to it, then you can make it happen. What's a practical tool that maybe you could share from the book that listeners could try to do today?
Well, there's a lot of things that I do that have helped me an awful lot. Mm-hmm. Something that I think is really practical is to write down every night 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for in your life. Mm-hmm. Because the more grateful you are, and the more you recognize the gratefulness that you have in your life, the more you're going to attract more and more things to be grateful for. Mm. It's like the law of attraction, right? Mm-hmm. And you just keep doing that, and after a while you'll be surprised. Like it may be something small, like somebody bought me a coffee, or better still, you bought a coffee for somebody else. Like just little things, and you start to write them down, and then every day you start to look for things that you can be grateful for, and that you're going to look forward to doing, and things are going to come into your life that'll help you to be grateful.
Things that come in your life that help you to be grateful. That's always really good. That's always really good. And one of the other questions I had for you, if people are out there feeling powerless right now, what would you say to them to help them regain their power?
Well, to regain your power, first of all, the world's a pretty noisy place right now, and it has been for a number of years. And we get caught up in all the negative stuff that's going on, the bad news, and it's being told that we're not good enough and that we're not powerful enough, and this and that and the other thing. But it boils down to looking at the power that you have within. I kind of lost your question there, Chris. Can you?
Sure. Yeah, I was asking you, for people that might be feeling powerless right now, what would you say to them?
Okay. Well, if they're feeling powerless, they've probably lost contact with their inner selves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they get caught up in all the negative things that are going on. And so what I'm saying is that to change that, we have to go back to our inner selves. We have to take some time to, like I said earlier, to meditate, to pray, to meet with people, like things like that help you to be around people that are going to encourage you to move your life forward. And there's a lot of people out there that'll help us, including, saying a prayer once in a while and asking the source or asking God to put us back into helping ourselves. I think that's something that we have to look at. We can't let ourselves get too far away from prayer and becoming good people and being around people that are helpful and good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Helping people is great. So you can get into all that and good stuff. Because the world is so noisy, why is it important right now for people to tap into their power?
To tap into their power?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no other way. There's no other way to go if we don't tap into our own power and decide, we have to decide what we want, and once we decide what we want, I don't know if you ever saw my book or not, but here's a picture of it. It's called Tapping into the Power Within. It shows a man on a bicycle or a person on a bicycle. And it's all about having purpose in your life, right? And when I was a very young kid, that's what started me. In the first paragraph in this book, I described the cover, and it's because I woke up one morning and I said, today, I'm going to learn to ride a bicycle. And that was a long time ago, and the bikes weren't all that easy to ride. But anyway, I decided that was my drive. That's what I knew what I wanted to do, right? So I gave it my attention, energy, and focus all day. I tried, and I get on that bike, and I fell off, and a number of times, and this and that and the other thing. But I was still determined that I was going to ride that bicycle. So I went to sleep that night. When I got up the next morning, I couldn't wait to get back on that bicycle again. So I had already met two of the things. First of all, I knew what I wanted to do, right? Second, gave it my attention, energy, and focus. I stayed right with it. I was going to learn to ride that bike. And the third thing is to allow it to happen. And allowing it to happen, that's like the three basics of the law of attraction, knowing what your purpose is, giving it your attention, energy, and focus, and then allowing it to happen. And allowing it to happen is the hardest thing for people to understand. But allowing it to happen just means that you don't have any doubt, that you let go of the doubt that you can do that. And so I learned to ride that bicycle within a day and a half or so, right? Mm-hmm. And it's because I had accomplished the three things. I knew what I wanted, gave it my energy, attention, and focus. And then the third thing was to allow it to happen, and I had to allow it to happen. If you don't allow it to happen, it will never happen. That's the hardest thing about the law of attraction, is understanding that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the law of attraction. Understand these things and everything else. You write about thoughts that shape our reality. How does that work in everyday life? The things we think about, how do they shape us?
Let me see. Well, let me have just looking at, every thought, everything starts with a thought. And I can remember arguing with a person must have been 30 years ago, saying that everything started with a thought. And this woman was determined. She said, no, everything doesn't start with a thought. But if I was to ask you, Chris, if I was to ask you, if what you think about and talk about and focus on, what effect does that have on your life?
You tell me.
Well, if you're somebody who is out there and, if you have a thought is things you're going to be talking about. For instance, if you're a negative person, you're going to say, geez, I can't remember names. I can't afford to buy this. I don't like my job and this, that, and the other thing, right? So that becomes your thought for the day. That becomes your thought all the time, because then you're talking to people all the time and you're complaining about all the things that you don't have. Mm-hmm. And you know that the people that talk about the things that they don't have end up being poor and end up having nothing. And the same goes with their health. Mm-hmm. If they have bad health and they're complaining about their health to their friends, and every time they meet somebody asks them about their health, they're going to complain about it, and they're losing their health. Well, you can change that to a more positive side of your life. And you say, well, maybe I don't have the money to buy that right now, but I'm in the process of getting the money to buy what I want, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can start telling yourself that, I'm good at remembering names. And you'll be surprised at how good you'll become at remembering names. And so that changes your life. When you start to think positively, more positive things are going to come into your life. And if you add that to writing down 3 or 4 things every night before you go to bed that you're grateful for, and you put that together, that's going to change your life, because you're going to be telling a different story. And once you start telling yourself a different story, your life is going to change big time. And you will notice it talking to your friends. You just watch the friends that you have and the people that you're talking to. What are they saying? And whatever they're saying, if they're saying, I can't afford that, I hate my job, and I don't like my neighbors, this and that and the other thing, that's the way they're living. That's the way they're living. But if you're the kind of person that says, I love my job, I love my neighbors, I love going out and doing this and that and helping my neighbors and all that kind of stuff, that's the way they live their life. And they say, I'm good at remembering names, they get good at remembering names. And people that remember names have a hell of an advantage when it comes to doing business, don't they?
Yeah.
It's just a few things that you can do that I think are practical. Mm-hmm. Am I taking up too much of your time here?
No, we're just going through the stuff. I'm just giving you a chance to flesh out what we're doing with the book. How can people recognize when they're giving away their power?
Well, you recognize you're giving away your power just by the way you speak. If you let other people make all decisions for you, you're going to end up losing your power. If you end up talking about negative things, like I was saying, I can't do this and I can't do that, every time you use the word can't, you're taking away the power that you have within. And we all have so much power within, because all we have to do is create our thoughts. And if our thoughts are positive, we're going to create a more positive life. We're going to be telling ourselves that different story. And that's so important. We can't allow ourselves to give away our power. Listening to negative news is a terrible thing to be doing too. Get out there and find some positive things that are going on. Make your life more positive, and you'll be surprised how things will work out for you. There's one thing I always remember about this woman that said the first 20 seconds when a person comes home from work changes the evening of the family. When you go home from work and your wife or your girlfriend or whatever asks you how was your day, and you start complaining about your day, that kind of sets a kind of a negative situation for the whole evening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you come home from work and your wife or your girlfriend or whoever asks you, how was your day? And you start saying, geez, I had a great day today. I learned this, that, and the other thing. I talked to this Chris guy there who really helped me, ask me some good questions about my book and stuff like that. That's going to change the atmosphere. And that's going to change the atmosphere, not only for you and your wife or whatever, but with the children around. And the children get used to that, and they love seeing their parents come home because they know that they're going to be positive and help them to build a positive life.
And, a lot of people can feel overwhelmed in life, and they need to tap into the power within themselves to help with stress, fear, uncertainty. Sometimes the doom scrolling, like you talked about, where, people will see the news, and sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially in trying times. And so what are some things that you can give advice, or is meditation a good piece of advice when people feel overwhelmed by life?
Yeah, I think meditation is not an easy thing to get into, but it's very helpful. I get down on myself sometimes because I meditate, and I tell Linda, I said, geez, I didn't get anything out of it tonight or whatever, but you got to learn to relax and just, to be happy with health. You got to change your perception. It's not always what's happening. It's not always what's happening in the world. It's the way you perceive what's happening in the world. And there's a lot of things going on out there that if you're listening to all the negative stuff that's going on, your perception can be very negative. But the things you can't change, allow your perception to look at it as something positive. Like when I was told to leave university, I could have. I could have given up on life. At a young age, people doesn't take much to throw them off sometimes. And I got thrown off by that, but I was lucky. I had a brother that came along and said, look, let's go travel for 6 weeks or so. And then when I come back, I knew what I wanted to do. I got away from all that stuff, and I wished everybody else had come with me. Right. Mm-hmm. So those kinds of things are very important. The other thing is not only our perception, but we don't always see things the way that they are. We see things the way we are.
And that's a really important point.
It is. I think it's important is that, we don't see things the way they really are, but we see things the way that we are. And so it's important for you to have a positive perception of life if you want to see things in a positive mood.
Yeah. Yep. There's wonderful things you put in this book, Tapping the Power Within. Now, you have some other books you've written as well. Do you want to put a plug in for them?
The first book I wrote a chapter with 10 other people. It was a great little book, but I pretty much included it in this book here, Tapping into the Power Within. Okay. And out of the two books, I think that this is the most powerful one, and everything that I wanted to say, I put in this one. And hopefully, some people will read it and get a lot out of it. The thing I find is that, the people that have read it and done the exercises at the end of the chapter, they come back and ask me for another book because they can't give the one that they have away because they've already written in it and put, answered the questions at the end of each chapter. So, it's been great. And
Awesome sauce. It's been wonderful to have you on. Now, do you do any coaching, consulting, any help for people they can reach out to you and work with you on?
I do a bit. People ask me, but I had some training with the Hartman Value Profile, and I haven't used it for a while. It got to be, but when I was coaching, I worked with people for 13 weeks at a time. Once I'd meet them once a week for 13 weeks. And then I got tied up into writing the book and doing other things and doing some speaking. And I got away from that. And I didn't want to tie myself up for 13 weeks. And so I'm kind of good at that. But, if people come along and they ask me if I can help them with certain things, and if I can, I'd be glad to. But I don't have as much time as I had.
Okay. So they can reach out to you on the website?
Yeah, they can go into what I said, www.ConradTonerCoaching.com. Conrad Toner author.com, rather. So it's www.ConradTonerAuthor.com. And my book's there, and all the information about it is pretty much there. And it should be, you can buy it on, what do they call it? Audio. You can buy it on audio.
Yes.
It's not set up just yet, but within the next week it should be.
All right. Well, it's been a delight to have you on. We certainly appreciate it. And very insightful, Conrad.
Well, certainly great to have you there, Chris, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. But a great show, and you seem to be all over the place. So, yeah.
We've done one or two.
Yeah, I guess you have. Like in the thousands.
So far.
Yeah.
Those are the ones we recorded. I mean, there's a lot of interviews we did at shows that they just go on the YouTube channel. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming on the show, Conrad. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, and thanks a lot for having me, and look forward to maybe talking to you again sometime, Chris. I'd love to.
Order up his book, folks, wherever fine books are sold. It's called Tapping into the Power Within, Your Journey to Empowered Success, out July 26, 2024, by Conrad Toner. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1, on the TikTok, and all those crazy places of the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
Oh, he left. Okay.